Is there a... I hope you brought your passport with you. Is there a...
Border controls.
Yeah, we'll wait and see.
Brew.
Is there...
People hiding narcotics
knows what Iron
tonic
Brew is
tea
except
cakes.
you and me. Is there much comedy in Scottish politics?
Well, I wasn't sure that there was. I mean, apart from the politicians, you mean, I assume. But although, because that's the thing, because there are, beyond the sort of 3 or 4 that people recognise, Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon, it's like down here, you know, very few of them are recognised. There's few that will set the world alight. There was one that set the curtains alight.
But he went to jail.
He went to jail for 15 months. But there was surprisingly little, and so that's what I wanted to do with that programme. It went out in BBC Scotland, and it's on the internet now, but it was an attempt to open the door and say, well, this is going to be an important debate. And I think I wanted people to engage in it, but also engage through comedy, because people who've done jokes about independence and jokes on both sides have found themselves, you know, getting a lot of abuse on the internet. Like, for example, I've forgotten her name now. Comedian who does the news quiz a lot, Susan Calman.
Ah, right.
And she got a lot of abuse just for making jokes, and they were pretty fair-minded jokes. On
Well, there are the cybernets to worry about.
Well, yes, there are, and there are on both sides. But yes, the cybernets. When I started doing this programme, and I said that Alex Salmond was going to have a wee office at the top of the Scott Monument with a 360-degree view, like a Bond villain stroking a cat, or possibly Nicola Sturgeon. And the stuff I got, and so I thought, well, you know, I didn't want to be intimidated by that. I thought, well,
these are pretty extreme on both sides who do that sort of thing. Is there in general an appetite among the Scots for some satire about the independence debate?
I think there is. I think people sort of responded to this, and they enjoyed the programme, because I think, you know, the debates, it's getting up to room temperature now, and people are starting to, obviously with the launch this week, although it was interesting down south that Channel 4 News, they ran 15 minutes on Andrew Mitchell before they went to the Scottish referendum. It's a different country up there, and I wanted to find out what people were thinking. I wanted to find out... I mean, fascinating that 3 of the 4 top politicians are women up there. And Ruth Davidson, she's a Tory
leader of the Tories.
And she's a lesbian kickboxer, which is fantastic.
So you better not satirise her.
Well, it makes Theresa May look a bit dull, doesn't it? But it's
She's
great.
taking lessons.
But I wanted to find out more about it, and it's, you know, there's a long way to run. As John Pienaar was saying, you know, it's not over yet. And Alex Salmond is a very, very crafty.
Well, here's the issue. I mean, Alex Salmond, north of the border, as we were saying, is the dominant politician. Partly because all the big Labour ones never went back; they stayed in Westminster. Now, I'd have thought for a satirist, I mean, the rule is the bigger you are, the harder you fall. That if you are a dominant, the way Spitting Image went for Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, isn't Alex Salmond a perfect target?
Well, you're right. A lot of the political heavyweights, they went down to Westminster to be heavyweights, or in the case of Eric Joyce, light heavyweights. I think that's right, because wasn't it? He was the boxing one.
He's the boxing one,
indeed. Fight in the Paralympic Games for Scotland.
He's just waiting outside.
I hope not. No, but there was an attitude very quickly I came across that if you criticised Alex Salmond, people said, I voted for him. Don't you insult me. I voted. And you don't get that if you do stuff about Cameron or Clegg or any of the other politicians. So I think, but Alex Salmond himself, he's got a very good sense of humour, and he can take it.
Yes.
But I just want to make the point that it's not just about Alex Salmond, it's about the other side of the argument as well. It'll be about Cameron and about the unionist side. But it's just important that we engage with the debate through comedy as well, and that it's not just a comedy-free zone.
But the no to independence side is, I know Alistair Darling leads it, but he's not, it doesn't crystallise round one large character the way the yes to independence crystallises around Mr Salmond.
No, it's a bit odd though, because when you've got Alex Salmond saying we're going to keep the pound and Alistair Darling saying we're not, we're back to a Scottish stereotype of 2 Scotsmen arguing over a pound. It's a bit
it's not even theirs.
No, well, I don't
boom, boom.
I think we want to keep the Queen, but in a cell in Edinburgh Castle, that's another thing, as a negotiating tool. But it does really divide opinion. That and wind farms in Scotland, you find people just as soon as... There are some parts of Scotland where it's easier to come out as being gay than it is to come out as being a unionist. And I'm not a unionist. You know, well, if I am, I'm a Scottish unionist. Rather like people said Robin Cook was a Presbyterian atheist.
Right, I'm going to have... It's a bit late at night for me to get that. You've met Alex Salmond. You have some admiration for him as a dominant politician. Is he easy to satirise?
No, I don't think he is particularly. He's a genial fellow. He engages with you. I can't say I've ever heard him tell a joke particularly. I don't think.
He could be very funny though in the chamber. He's got great timing.
I forgot.
Yeah, no, he's got great timing, and he always held the chamber. when he was
He's a strong debater with the
very
timing
strong
as
debater.
well.
I like the fact that his slogan is "Yes, Scotland," which sounds like something he'd say at a moment of orgasm, and his wife would obviously say "Better together."
Once again, the lawyers will be speaking to us. Is it a disadvantage, Rory, that the other big Scottish political characters, Gordon Brown, Ming Campbell, Alistair Darling, they're Westminster-based? Does that put them at a disadvantage?
Oh well, he says huge. I don't know. I mean, I think their voices would count for a lot. I mean, there's two interesting things because it's a win-win for Alex Salmond. Because if they win, obviously the independence vote, they have independence. But if they lose, a lot of Scots will say, well, we're still part of the United Kingdom. We want a very, very Scottish government back at Holyrood. So
isn't that what they've got now?
Well, yes, indeed. Well, that's another point. But what's to say if there was an independent vote? Would then all bets be off? Would Gordon Brown, would Alistair Darling, would Ming Campbell say, well, we've got a few years left as politicians, we'll come back?
They wouldn't. What
would never
put the
do it.
Labour Party at a disadvantage? We were dominated by Scots in the 80s, all of them, John Smith,
yes,
you know, and so on. And they told us, English MPs, because we didn't know, they said, oh, if we give them a bit of devolution, that will kill the argument for
Killstone
independence.
dead, said one Labour politician.
That's what we were told.
That
And
worked.
now we've seen Alex
Well, that was
Salmond.
Blair, wasn't it? He said yes.
No, it was, I forget, it was the guy who ended up head of NATO.
And Alex Salmond...
George Robertson.
Yeah, he's another one.
Challenger tanks and
He's
a meat
another
pie.
one. But Alex Salmond's come to dominate a system which was set up to keep the SNP out.
I'd like to say there's also an argument that Alex Salmond can only lose either way. I mean, one is he doesn't win the independence vote, which is obviously a major setback for him.
Mm-hmm.
The other is that he does win the independence vote and is saddled with trying to run an independent Scotland. And as I was saying earlier, that is the thing about which I think he's lost his nerve.
If the vote was held tomorrow, how would you vote?
How would I vote tomorrow? Oh, that's right on the spot because I think well, do you know what? I'm not going to say
just a yes
because
or a no.
I have no plans. What did you say
Yeah,
about that?
all right, no plans.
Because there's a year to run.
You're mixing too much with politicians. It's rubbing off.
You don't have
Rory,
to
great
vote,
to
do you?
see you again.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
You've got
we have
an address in
we have a
Scotland.
house in Scotland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Look you up when I'm north of the border again. I'll be there. You'll hear the sound of cheap luggage on the doorstep.
And I'll say you'll have had your tea,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
Andrew.
Yeah, I'll be in Edinburgh then, not Glasgow.
Oh.